Welcome back, continuing the news. The Court of Appeal has upheld the convictions of dancehall entertainer Vybz Kartel, Sean Campbell, Kiara Jones and Andre St. John for the 2011 murder of Clive Lizard Williams. The decision was handed down this morning. Court of Appeal President Dennis Morrison, Justice Patrick Brooks and Justice Frank Williams made up the three-member panel. Vashon Brown has been looking at the ruling and now reports.
Silence in the courtroom about 9:30 this morning when the three-member panel of judges arrived to hand down their decision. President of the Court of Appeal Dennis Morrison said the appeals of Adidja Palmer, better known as Vybz Kartel, Sean Campbell, Kiara Jones and Andre St. John against their convictions were all dismissed and the convictions upheld. One of the grounds for the appeal was the admissibility of cell phone evidence. The phone is important because it contained, among other things, 40 voice notes, 8 images, as well as text messages relied on by the prosecution. During the appeal hearing in July 2018, lawyers for Vybz Kartel pointed to a discrepancy in relation to the time one of the text messages used to convict the entertainer was sent. That text message read, "Between me and you, a chap will chop up the boy lizard fine and dash him away no. As long as you live, them can never find him." Lawyers for the appellant said there were uncertainties about the date the text message was created. They argued that it was created on July 6, 2011, 6 weeks before prosecutors claimed Clive Lizard Williams was killed. The prosecutors said there was no discrepancy. They argued that that specific message was created August 19, 2011. Note here that August 19, 2011 is 3 days after prosecutors said Lizard was killed. In the written judgment, the court said despite the submissions in respect of the chop-up message, it cannot be said that there was truly a discrepancy as to when the message was sent. The cross-examination, the court argued, sought to introduce other dates as being important, but the police investigator who testified at the trial did not resile from his evidence as to the date that the chop-up message was sent. The investigator's testimony was that a file with messages was created on July 6, 2011, and that the messages in that file were sent on August 19, 2011. As for the phone itself, lawyers for the appellant argued that the phone was tampered with and manipulated. In the October 2014 trial, a police investigator admitted that there was an outgoing text message on the phone on October 1, 2011. Note here, the police took the phone from Kartel on September 30, 2011. The investigator also admitted in the 2014 trial that there were 3 outgoing calls on October 9, 2011. Prosecutors argued that the use of the phone was not malicious. In its decision, the Court of Appeal said there is no evidence of tampering with either the date or timestamps of the items relied upon by the prosecution. A mere possibility that there could have been manipulation of those items is not sufficient to disqualify those items from the consideration of the jury. The court said the fact that the phone was improperly used while in the custody of the police is too slender a basis to exclude the rest of the evidence on the phone. On March 13, 2014, there was an alleged case of bribery by one juror. The trial judge allowed the jury to deliberate after the issue was brought to his attention, but first reminded the jurors of their oath. That led the lawyers for the appellants to argue that they were tried by a contaminated and tainted jury. During the 2018 appeal hearing, prosecutors had argued that failure to discharge the jury, despite of the bribery allegation, cannot amount to a miscarriage of justice. In response to this, the Court of Appeal says it seems to us that the judge had before him enough information on which to base his discretion to continue with the trial with warnings or directions to the jury, which he ultimately did. There was nothing that could have been gained and a great deal that would have been lost by questioning the accused juror. Vashon Brown, TVJ News.
In the meantime, the Court of Appeal says it is reserving its decision relating to sentencing. The trial judge in 2014 sentenced the appellants to life imprisonment at hard labor. He ordered that Campbell and Jones should each serve a minimum of 25 years in prison before becoming eligible for parole, while Kartel should serve a minimum of 35 years and St. John a minimum of 30 years. Kartel and his co-appellants complained that these sentences were manifestly excessive. The Court of Appeal said the sentences imposed by the judge in this case cannot be said to have been excessive to such an extent as to call for the court's intervention. Now, it says lawyers for the appellants should provide the court with a brief note concerning the time spent on remand prior to being sentenced within the next 7 days. The court will give its decision on sentencing in writing within 14 days of receipt of that note.
Meanwhile, the attorney representing the dancehall artist says he will be taking the matter to the Privy Council. Anthony Lugg has more in this report.
It was not the result supporters of Adidja Vybz Kartel Palmer, Sean Storm Campbell, and their co-accused hoped for when the judgment was handed down Friday morning. The Court of Appeal rejected the submission. Our news team spoke with defense attorney Bert Samuels after the ruling.
We waited 1 year, 8 months, hoping that the judgment would have come in our favor. With all the experience I have, I'm still in shock, because this is one of the strongest appeals I've ever argued in my 41-year career at the bar. This is why I'm encouraged that we will succeed at the next level. Sean Campbell had discussions with us. We broached to him the possibility, the remote possibility, that we would have been turned down, and he said in the unlikely event, we should go to the Privy Council.
The high-profile case involving Kartel and his co-accused is one of the longest in the history of the courts and generated much debate, like the fact that the justice system was also on trial. Director of Public Prosecutions Paula Llewellyn responded.
There is a view, somewhat misguided, I think, or misperceived, let me use misperceived, that some people are above the law. But every now and again, in the same way that the COVID-19 experience that we are having has touched prime ministers, ministers of health worldwide, the famous, the infamous, royalty, in the same way, the rule of law, certainly in our jurisdiction, reminds us through cases like this that nobody is above the law.
Mr. Campbell expressed to me that there is a certain perception of a pressure that is on the justice system in Jamaica, because they don't feel that there is any, as it were, freedom to think freely because of who are involved in this appeal. And we don't think that the Privy Council comes under any such pressure when we take matters to them.
So, as the defense attorneys combed through the written judgment before going to the Privy Council, how prepared is the DPP?
When the matter was tried, the prosecution prepared the case. We were ready. When the matter went to the Court of Appeal, they took it to the Court of Appeal. They filed their grounds of appeal. We did our research. We were ready. And I believe that if it is taken elsewhere and the appeal is filed, then we would also have to be ready there as well.
Anthony Lugg, TVJ News.
Now, our reporter Dwayne Anderson was in Waterford, St. Catherine today. That's where Vybz Kartel grew up. His supporters and friends there expressed disappointment with the outcome of today's court proceedings.
Waterford, St. Catherine, minutes after 9 Friday morning, barely anyone moved about. The people held their collective breaths as the judgment of Vybz Kartel's murder appeal was read out in Kingston. Immediately after, the residents of the self-styled Gaza emerged from their homes. Friends and supporters of Vybz Kartel have been waiting on the outcome of this appeal for many years. Even a big party was planned, but when word came, it was not the outcome they had hoped for.
Not at all, trust me. I was surprised when I hear this because I wasn't looking for it.
Whole Gaza right now, depressed.
It's sad. His family right now, how are they feeling right now? Him as a person, he has him hopes up, how he's feeling right now at this moment. There's no word can express how he's feeling right now. And I feel like the system failed him. The system did this to him. I don't know for why or for what, but they did this though.
The plan by Kartel's lawyers is to go to the Privy Council for the next leg of this legal battle. Supporters of the entertainer feel he was not given a fair trial in Jamaica and therefore believe a more favorable judgment could return from the United Kingdom-based court.
Fair trial overseas. So we can look out for that one day. Them say next 7 days or so, we don't know. And maybe longer. Well, I saw it go. So we are waiting upon that time there for come.
The residents told me a lot has changed in Waterford since the DJ has been incarcerated.
With him here, the place was more vibesy.
Waterford is under constant surveillance due to the state of emergency in effect in the parish. During our time in the area, we saw a police car visit the area referred to as Gaza. But it was just a routine check as no disturbances were reported as a result of the verdict. Dwayne Anderson, TVJ News.